It's interesting that I was just watching an article that someone posted on Facebook, and it was an article regarding the shootings that take place in Chicago, Illinois, in the black community. They had photos of black males holding black males that were crying, because of the shootings, because of the fact that they lost friends and loved ones. It's unfortunate. It's a real unfortunate situation. And then when I sign on YouTube, I see a whole lot of comments going back and forth. And dialogue is good. Dialogue is always good, regardless of the fact that there's people that's going to troll, there's people that's going to attack the opinions of other people. That's going to be there. That's necessary to dialogue. But in that dialogue, make sure that you come to some common ground, which, from my experiences on this earth and from my observation, we always hear black Americans complain and bitch about racism and discrimination and the race war. And everybody's got an opinion on a race war. And usually when people think of race war, they think of a war that's between blacks and whites. It's never a war between blacks and blacks, because a lot of so-called black Americans have the false idea that blacks cannot be racist. They say blacks can't be racist because blacks don't have the power to be a racist. What power do you need? What's the qualifications for a racist? They've called white people racist. They've called Asians racist. They've called Arabs racist. So if all those other races are racist, as you say, what exempts the so-called black Americans from being a racist against whites, against Asians, against Arabs, even against themselves? Now, the race war that's been going on, and it's gotten even worse and stronger in this day and time, a race war that many black Americans refuse to talk about, is the black on black violence, the black on black hate, the black on black burglaries and robberies. Black on black, but they say they love black people. They say that Black Lives Matter. And when this Asian attacked these black females in Brooklyn, we saw a community, or the portion of a community, come together to shut that Asian establishment down. They were in the rain shouting, "Shut them down." They were angry and they showed their anger, but yet no one in the black community shows anger when blacks kill blacks. Now, these females, they got beat by these Asians, were hit with a broomstick. They were backed into a corner, like I mentioned in a prior video, and the only person that was holding this one black female was a little weak-looking Asian dude. Now, we know from experience and from history that black females are masculine. They're violent. They're aggressive. But when it came to these little Asians, they humbled themselves and they became the victim. But yet, they refused to be the victim of their own people, which I find that to be quite interesting. But when you talk about black on black violence, the black on black crime, the black on black murders, then you got black people that will stand up in opposition, and they start comparing with other races. Well, nobody talks about the white on white. No one talks about the Asian on Asian. And so because nobody talks about that, and they only talk about black on black violence, then that means they're racist. But shouldn't y'all be angry and upset at the thought that 41 people, in one case 60 some odd people, were killed in a weekend in Chicago's black community? And the thing that I find that's quite interesting and confusion and makes no sense at all is that when Trump vowed to send the military or the feds into Chicago, the black community protests against that. Think about that for a minute. The man that they claim to be a racist says, I'm going to clean up Chicago. I'm going to stop these black people from killing each other because of the fact that the hate that's among black people against each other is so strong. I'm going to send help down there, even if it means stop and frisk. I'm going to send the feds in to put a stop to this. And black people protested against that. And for some reason, fear sets in, or is that imitation fear? And they start crying out saying that he's sending them down here to kill our babies. Now, Louis Farrakhan did a speech, and there's a video, and I'm going to post a link to that video on the bottom, where Farrakhan was condemning Donald Trump for wanting to send the feds to clean it up. Now, the Nation of Islam is pretty big. The home base, if I'm not mistaken, is in Chicago. Louis Farrakhan is in Chicago, where all of these shootings and killings are taking place in the black community. It's easy for them to talk about the black churches and how people would die on the church's doorstep, and the black churches aren't doing anything for the black community. But what about the Nation of Islam that's in the black community? That's supposed to be for black people. That's supposed to love black people. It's easy to stand up and make a speech and say, stop killing each other. It's easy to have these million-man marches, make everybody feel good like the churches do for a short period of time. And then you collect their money and go back to where you live and don't have to worry about the type of violence and death and bloodshed that's taking place in the black community in your hometown. So when I saw that video, I said, Farrakhan need to go sit down somewhere. It's easy to stand up and make a speech saying that Trump this and Trump that, and he want to kill our people. But what are you doing, Nation of Islam, in Chicago? Why aren't you down in that community? Why don't I see the FOI down there cleaning that community up, saying like, listen, now in New York City, back in the 70s, they had the, what do you call them? How could I forget that? How could I forget that group, man? Guardian Angels that was patrolling Central Park in different areas of New York City, helping to clean it up, right? And these people, these brothers, they fought. If need to be, they will fight to clean up New York City. The Nation of Islam is in Chicago. Do we see the FOI down in those areas saying, look, bro, no more drugs in this community? We are not going to tolerate it. Because if the Nation of Islam did that, know that you more than likely would have the authorities backing you up, being that you're supposed to be a power figure. So because you supposed to be a power entity, I'm sure you would have them backing you up. If the Nation of Islam, if the FOI go down in these neighborhoods where all these shootings taking place and say, listen, we're ready to throw down, but we're not going to continue to allow this type of killing to go on in our communities. But no one is saying a thing. No churches. Maybe you may have a few churches that's trying to say something. But no churches, no mosque, whatever you call yourself, no mores. You get online and that's your podium. You get on Facebook and you talk about what needs to be done. You talk about how black people need you and how they need to come out to churches. But yet, I see the killings increasing. Now, there's always been killings in Chicago. Blacks have always killed themselves in Chicago, but at one time, it was just isolated into one area, Cabrini Green. And when they tore Cabrini Green down, man, that scattered everybody in different parts of Chicago. You know, because, of course, they locked up the head of the gang, so now every man for themselves. So now the killings in Chicago spread from one isolated area to another, or to other areas of Chicago. And for some reason, black people hate each other so much, you're killing each other. But you claim to be united when these Asians beat down these black females. Now, I don't know why, just like in Baltimore, you have black people, preachers, Nation of Islam, that got on buses, trains, whatever, and they went down to protest. But yet in Chicago, I don't see any of these groups, Nation of Islam, Moorish Science Temple, Black Power, whatever you choose to call yourself. I don't see you guys like Baltimore banding together, going down to Chicago to stop that violence. I don't see you guys doing that. But it's easy for you to post these articles online and talk about, see what they're doing over there? What's wrong with Chicago? Blacks killing each other. And then when somebody say, you know what? You talk about this one cop that shoot a black dude or this Asian that beat down this black female. Now you want to band together and shut their business down. But yet you still refuse to support your own communities. I'm sitting there watching a video that Sonetta put up. And it was raining, pouring down raining, and they out there, boy. They out there protesting the Asian store. And when the dude pulled the gate down, they start cheering because they felt they accomplished something. But yet blacks are still dying in the community. And you're concerned about, and the sad thing about that is, while they were out there protesting, you still have black people going in and out of that business, supporting in spite of what happened. Because in their minds, they're thinking, it's got nothing to do with me. That's them. And see, a lot of black people got a that's them attitude or mentality. So a race war that many black Americans fail to talk about or refuse to talk about is the race war among themselves. Divide and conquer. And I always say a house divided within itself will not stand. So we don't have to worry about any other racist group or racial group destroying us because we're destroying ourselves. Just look at the amount of hate that's on YouTube alone just for someone monetizing a video or just because someone monetized a channel. So you have a certain group of black people that don't like to see black people excel or do better than they. I know young men that maybe got a basketball deal or something and they were going to stardom. And I recall this one young man, he got drafted. I think it was a basketball or something like that, football, but he got drafted and he was on his way out of this city. And so they decided to have a going away for him, right? So they had a party and he went to celebrate that weekend before he left here. to become a famous ball player? Do you not know jealousy entered the heart of a troll that took his life, did not want to see him excel, and killed that young man, took away the opportunity for him to gain success? They failed to do for themselves, and they despised to see someone else that came up with them to do better than they. And because of the fact that they gave this young man a going away, they killed him that weekend, and he never had the opportunity to fulfill his dream. The white man didn't do that. Donald Trump didn't do that. Black people did that. And I even heard someone that accused what happened in that Asian shop on Donald Trump. This happened under this president's. It's insane. But when we talk about black on black hate, black on black violence, black on black murders, black people will rise up and say, white people do it too. So because they do it too, it's okay for us to kill each other. Because black people know that no one else cares about them. Society had become so used to black people hating and despising each other that when black people get killed, no one says nothing. Oh yeah, just another day in the hood. No one says a word. But let a white person kill one black person. Keep in mind, 60 some odd people killed in a weekend. And that was just that weekend. And nobody said anything. It hit the news, but there was no outcry. None. Now there's a local politician, a Democrat, that was calling for Trump to come in. And then when Trump talked about sending the feds in, Farrakhan stood up. Where was Farrakhan when all this killing was happening? In Chicago. Where was Farrakhan then? Why didn't he send the FOI down there to patrol that area? After all, look at all the money that's being given or donated to the Nation of Islam. But is the Nation of Islam putting that money back into the community? Oh yeah, they have no problem going in the black community selling final calls and bean pies. Final call is what they say. Final call. So you get a final call, donate the Nation of Islam, but what is the Nation of Islam giving back to you? Why isn't the Nation of Islam taking a lot of that money? They talk about the businesses that they set up. They talk about how they get paid for doing security. But yet they fail to do security in their own neighborhoods. But let the government stand up and says, y'all don't want to stop killing each other, so we're going to come down there and make you stop killing. Nobody should have to make you stop killing yourselves. That right there is a disgrace. So forget about talking about the racist white man and what the white man doing to you and how the white man's keeping you down and you killing yourselves. That's the race war that many black Americans refuse to talk about. Is the race war among yourselves. So feedback, tell me what you think, subscribe, share this video, and click on the donate button if you like the message or if you respect the message. Until next time, I'm fearless.